Bleach Bros, bruh. What's going on, Jake? Welcome to the Bleach Bros podcast. This is B-Word, and how you doing tonight?
Oh, you know, I'm here.
You're just so melancholy tonight.
I know, dude. I'm a little tired. It's been crazy.
I mean,
I was mad on the freeway today.
why were you mad on the freeway, Jake?
So, all right, first of all, I think I'm a hero. And when I'm talking like a hero, you ever see the movie Super with Ryan Wilson, you know, who played in Dwight Schrute on The Office?
I've never seen that movie.
So it's not a great, it's a movie I like. So that should tell
it's
you
not
that.
a great movie.
No, but it's weird, right? Well, he becomes like a superhero, and like at one point he beats somebody in the face with a monkey wrench because they cut in line at a movie theater.
Is this movie on the Hayat channel?
No, it's on IFC. It's an independent thing. So, anyways,
okay.
He beats people's face in with a monkey wrench and yells "Shut up, crime!" That's his slogan as a superhero. And
That's stupid.
So I do that, not beat people in the face, but like, all right. So when I'm in traffic, if I see somebody like drive like a jerk, usually in a Prius, and cut people off or something, I make my intention to cut them off back eventually.
But do you yell at them and say, "Shut up, crime"?
No, but I will like drive my Jeep, ride their ass, and like get in front of them and then piss them off probably as much as they've pissed everybody else off, and then drive slow on purpose. Just stuff like that. So
You
to
need
me,
a personalized license plate.
So to me, what I really want, you know, those like ticker like things at like old like diners in Vegas and stuff that would like have the letters stream across. Yeah. I've always dreamed of getting one of those installed on the back of my car and typing things so when people drive behind me, it could say things to them. Like,
I mean, in all fairness, you probably shouldn't be typing while you're driving. But if you were doing like a voice to text, I'd be all about that.
Well, no, like I would actually have it so it's programmed like into the buttons on my like presets on my radio. So if I hit one, it's like cool. It's like "You're a douche," you know what I mean? Stuff like that, or "Eat a bag of dicks," or "I banged your mom last night." You know, these are all the presets I would have. Like, you know, what's a saying that you would yell at them? Like, what's one I could put in this preset?
And so this is what I was going to say. So what I think you should do is that you should not be, you know, like aggressively vulgar. You should be properly vulgar. And so what I mean by that is that your preset number 3, as an example, could be, "You, sir, are a bag of vinegar flavored." And just leave it that way. You know, it could be strawberry douche, it could be whatever. But by saying it properly, you can be like throwing people off a little bit, and they're like, what is a flavored bag of vinegar?
No, see, at first I thought you were going to go like the Shakespearean route, like "Youth are thou thy douche of thyest mother," right? No, I don't think you'd be proper. You know why? Because people that are like that are not very literate, usually, in my opinion. So that's me judging too, right? They're not the highest level. So if you're doing that, like they don't even. Those are the type of people that like when you're texting, they put "you" and "r" for "your." And sometimes they were like those assholes. All right, another complaint. Remember,
they respond with K.
Yeah. Okay. Exactly. That's my complaint. Remember when text used to be like 10 cents a text?
Oh yeah.
I used to be so pissed at friends when I'd text and I'd be like, okay, you know, and I'd write it out, and then you get that K, and you're just like, dude, I just spent 10 cents for your stupid letter. So what I would do, just like my vigilante mode, I would text single letters to them back. Just so they got the 10-cent charge too. And it wouldn't even be like a K back. It would be like a stupid letter, like Q. And then the best part is, then they would text more, and then I'd get charged more because I'd open it like an idiot. So it was my own downfall. So that's why I was mad today. My own downfall happened. I cut this guy off, and then he got more mad at me, and then saw me at the gas station, and it just turned into a whole mess. And I don't know, just ruined my day.
You brought up the letter Q, and that reminded me of when I went to Vegas and we were partying
in the Red Room.
And we met up with a dude named Q.
And I still have the photos from that. I will post a few of those. That's when we hung out with your cousin.
Dude, I was so hungover. Oh my god.
My favorite is
terrible, dude.
We jumped behind the bar ourselves because Q convinced us. He was this really tall black dude. And we thought he was a bouncer there. That was my favorite part. And he's like, yeah, just go back there. So we thought he'd let us. So we just went behind the bar and started pouring our own drinks. Little did we know, Q knew nobody there. And we got told to knock it off.
It was a fun night. It was
yeah.
a fun night, but dude, I was so hungover that time when we were there. So it was just, those were bad memories. I'm just gonna be honest with you. But no, Q was a cool dude. I mean, he was legit. It was a fun night. Absolutely. Yeah. But so back then though, speaking of text messages, were you proficient with like the T9 text messages?
Oh yeah, like I could text better without looking T9 than I can now.
I would agree with you there.
I used to just
T9
know.
was great.
No, it's sort of like how you type, right? You could feel certain numbers and everything,
Yeah.
and you knew, okay,
Yeah.
this one is 4 pushes, that one's
Yeah.
that. And then they came out with the asshole mode. Did you ever see it when they came out with like flip phones and they did the T9, but it was predictive T9?
Yes.
I hated that.
That was stupid.
I hated it too with predictive. The only thing I hated with the smart predictive, I call it, is when you would click it too many times and then it would go to like certain I don't know, what's the A with the little stupid thing over it in certain languages. You know,
yeah, I know what you're talking
they
about.
They would start adding
yeah,
that pissed me off too. But
so I have a story about T9 texting
Okay.
that I think is very funny. So I was partying one night. I can't even remember what year this was, but this was a long time ago. And I was partying with my buddy Cody, and we were texting this girl, and we didn't know who was going to get the girl, but we were both texting her back and forth. And blah blah blah, and ultimately, Mr. Cody was doing T9 texting with her, and he sent her a text message that said, "I want to kick your puppy."
ooh, and I know what he meant. I know what he
meant too. I know what he meant too. So she responded back, "Kick my puppy?" ? Right? And so he's like, "Yeah, I want to kick your puppy," and he's too drunk to know that it's not registering in his phone, right?
Right.
And so all of a sudden we're texting whatever, and she's like, "Why would you do that to a dog?" And so we had to read it, and of course, "kick your puppy" was not the general intent on what he was trying to say. It was lick your
I'd like to solve the
spot,
puzzle there.
ultimately.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. Would you like to buy a vowel? Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's a Batman symbol, right? So anyway, long story short, that was pretty funny because that whole night it was like, yeah, I want to drop kick your Doberman. Yeah, I want to wreck your Rottweiler. Like it was a total thing because kicking puppies, kicking forever, dude.
I love things like that though, because here's why. Because then it turns into like the inside joke. Like I have one with like so we've talked about him before on the show, the travesty. So he was one of those where he always liked to come up with his own sayings. So like, instead of, how everybody used to say hardcore back in the day, he used to say cement center. And I'm not saying this is cool. I'm just saying like, I appreciate it.
Right.
Like he would also, instead of bands names, like he would say, hey, let's throw on some Mama Beetle. And he meant Papa Roach. And I mean, you've met Travesty. I mean, that's the type of guy he is.
Yeah.
And he talks in code and stuff. But I mean, that's fun. But I don't know. I mean, it's like, see, Cody, the guy you were just talking about, it's a guy, right?
Oh, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, Cody Ross.
Well, you never know who's going to kick a puppy these days.
Right.
He is the epitome of the person I was just talking about driving the Prius, that if I would have typed out your high-class society one, he wouldn't have got it.
It's true.
So.
It's true. Well, real quick, while we're on the subject, I'm actually going to upgrade my phone tomorrow, I think, because my phone company has some pretty significant upgrade deals for me.
Okay.
And so I'm going to go check it out. But every time I look at phones, I miss the Motorola Razr. Like the Motorola Razr, the original one, was like the best phone ever. Would you agree with that, or
No.
are you going to argue with that?
I like the Nokia brick.
Really?
I do. I loved the Nokia brick. And here's the thing.
Why?
I don't know. I just like the size. It was
Because it's indestructible?
Yeah, it's indestructible. The size,
That's stupid.
The battery lasted forever. I also liked the ringtones on it. I always put the baseball one on there. I don't know. Phones are simple. I just like phone. I like a phone to be. I'm such a curmudgeon. Like I don't consider myself a millennial because I excommunicated myself from that community. But right. I consider myself a Gen X, or actually, I just consider myself a Jake that hates all that. But
I have had arguments with a huge amount of people that there is a segment of the population that is called Xennials. It's Xenials.
I like this
Xennials.
argument. It's sort of like when I say I'm a Demublican, but besides the point. Just to be funny.
Yeah.
But anyways,
Well,
so,
you have the trunk of an elephant and the ass of a jackass.
I was gonna say, see, I like the color purple, and my animal's the llama, and I just don't give a crap anymore.
I mean, there you go. There you go.
No, but I don't know. I'm not a fan of. I never had a Motorola Razr. I didn't see the point. I think
you're
if I was
missing
gonna
out,
pick a
man.
phone, I would have picked the Sidekick.
Oh no! I knew you were gonna pick that. That's terrible.
Why? Why is that terrible?
Because you're like the total chick. Like you're the.
You know what?
If there was a
I'm
movie
gonna
made about
bedazzle
your life,
it.
it would be Clueless.
I'm gonna
It would be
bedazzle
Clueless.
it, and I'm gonna put Justin Bieber as the bring ringtones back.
Exactly.
We need to bring
Exactly.
ringtones back. You know what?
No, you're not even gonna bring ringtones back. You're gonna have like the callback tones or whatever.
That's what I was gonna
like
ask
when
you.
You're calling somebody. Those are terrible.
What's worse, callback tone or ringtone in today's
callback
society?
tone?
Callback.
Callback tone.
You know who has a callback tone? Our fellow Bleach Bro, Greg,
Does he?
who
What's
doesn't
callback
understand what a
is it?
Bleach Bro is. His is a Knight Rider.
Oh, well, that's not terrible.
No, it's not terrible. It's just funny.
Like
and
if it was like Hinder Lips of an Angel or something,
Oh,
like I'd
God.
be like, okay, he's got to change that.
Or
But,
Flyleaf.
Knight Rider's
I
fine.
hate
Or-
that band. I hate Flyleaf. No, what was it? He has it, and the first time I called, I talked my wife, and I was like, hey, you know what? And so then I asked him, and he goes, oh, that's still there. And I also have a client who has Mozart as his.
Yeah.
And he doesn't know. He has no idea he has that.
I like how we used to pay like $1.50 or whatever it was for ringback tones, and also for ringtones for individual people. And then we found little apps later on that gave it to us for free or whatever. But I mean, I can't tell you how much money I wasted to try to have my phone be cool, just to have it be like this stupid phone.
Well, yeah, it's because you had a Motorola Razr and you had to try to make it cool.
Right.
No, what was your favorite ringtone that you had?
So, so my buddy Pat. Okay, we call him Old Man Pat or OMP. I had ZZ Top legs for Pat. Okay.
Okay.
And a significant amount of time ago, 15 years ago or somewhere in that vicinity, I had a girlfriend who we were doing things, and he didn't know that I was doing things. And so he's calling me while I'm in the middle of doing things on this bed, and all I hear is, she's got legs. She knows how to use them. And then it would stop, and then it would just play over and over and over. But here's the thing about Pat. He doesn't just call and get voicemail and leave a voicemail. Like, the dude will call 3 or 4 times just to verify that I'm actually not avoiding him. And so the whole time that I was trying to punch pelvic regions, I'm sitting there listening to ZZ Top. So that would probably be my most memorable one. Because that was just pretty funny.
Yeah, my most memorable was I always had I like big butts.
Okay.
And
yeah.
my favorite is I would be at work, and it would do it all the time because back then you didn't silence your phone. My favorite was Zelda, the theme song.
I could get down with that. I think that's good. Yeah. But I want to touch this I'm big butts thing with you here real quick because I'm an ass man.
Me too. Got to have something to hang on to.
Yeah, I am totally an ass man. And, we've talked about it before, but Scarlett Johansson, incredible bottom.
Best of both worlds.
She's got an incredible bottom. Actually, she has a wonderful top, too. I like to call the top part the education, right? That's her certificates, right? Dude, she's well educated, okay? And I like to call the rear the assets. So the perfect woman has a good education and good assets, right? Because if you have a woman that has no education and no assets, she's a pirate's worst nightmare. She's a sunken chest with no booty, and I think that's terrible.
It is terrible.
Yeah, Scarlett Johansson's fantastic, and actually, Mr. Jake, I watched the Black Widow movie. Did you watch it?
Me and the wife went on a date and watched it.
Did you?
It was great.
So is your wife an ass person or is she a tit person?
She
and I'm
has
not
an
talking
ass.
like, well, okay, but like her preferences. Does she prefer ass or prefer tits?
Well, she doesn't like it when I have man tits. She does like my butt though. She grabs my butt a lot. I don't know. My wife doesn't. I don't think my wife checks out other women really. But
well, she should.
She's see, you know what's weird about me? I'm a nose guy. Scarlett Johansson has a nice nose.
That's not weird.
I like her nose. It's a good, like, you know who else has a nice nose? Remember the girl from Dirty Dancing in the 80s?
Dude, she had a nose. So I
And then she ruined it.
Full disclosure, man. Like I've never like done drugs. Okay, like it's not been something that I've ever been into. But I look at her nose. What's her name? Jennifer Grey.
Yeah.
Like I look at her nose, and she's definitely not somebody you snort coke with, because she would take all of it. Like she has a huge nose.
I know I like a nose. Anyways, yes, we went and watched Black Widow, and
What'd you think?
I loved it.
Did you?
I did. I loved it. I don't know why some of my favorite critics, I'm gonna throw them out. Chris Stuckman, one of my favorite reviewers, he panned it. I mean, he didn't give it the lowest grade ever, but he didn't really enjoy it. I mean,
Right.
I think it follows the Marvel formula, of course, but I mean, that's what I go in to
Sure.
expect. It's like the argument I'll always use: King Kong versus Godzilla. I'm going in to watch giant monsters fight. But I thought the characters, it actually built on characters better than some of the other films have.
Sure.
The humor was there, the lightheartedness was there, the seriousness was there when needed. Do I think it was like the Manny Pacquiao versus Mayweather fight? It was about 5 years too late. I think this movie should have been made a long time ago, and I see the argument of like, oh, they're only making it now for not just fan service, but they have to because they've never made a woman, lead role film.
Like a woman lead movie. Yeah.
Right, and they had to, but it was great. I thought it was a great movie. I thought it did, and even the changes they made. I mean, they did a good job. What did you think?
I thought overall, I think you're correct when you say that Marvel kind of has a formula, and I think that they stuck to that pretty good. I think this is the best portrayal of the Black Widow character in any of the movies. I think it gave her character depth. It elaborated a little bit on a backstory. They added the quote unquote family for her, right? And so it gave her. It gave you more interest on the character itself. So if you were somebody who was kind of on the fence of the Black Widow character, I think that you have a little bit more substance to be able to make a decision on if you like Black Widow or not now. Because there was always the thing between Black Widow and Hawkeye, where they had a backstory and you never really knew what the backstory was, and this movie kind of gave you a little bit of that backstory. It didn't go into a huge depth of what it was, but it gave you enough to know what the mission was about. If that makes sense.
You brought up a good character of a point I want to make though, real quick to interrupt you.
Sure.
Hawkeye. So the only thing that I'll give in Marvel's defense why they didn't make this movie before is the same reason they haven't made a Hawkeye movie. You're essentially taking almost normal people, and I mean, I understand Iron Man's a normal person, but he's super smart. He made his suit, right? What normalized hero? So out of all the heroes we've seen in the MCU, the most normalized hero is Black Widow and then Hawkeye, correct?
Yeah, I would say that.
That's why they haven't made a movie. Out of all the arguments, that's why.
I'm okay with that, but I'm still looking forward to the Hawkeye series. But I think that the Black Widow movies set up the Hawkeye series. And I'm not trying to put any spoilers out there for those who haven't watched Black Widow, because I know that we do have a few followers that plan to watch it, and so I don't want to ruin it for anybody. But what I will say is that they did answer some of the questions as to what their backstory was. I have to tell you, man, like I walked out of the movie theater, and I told you this when I walked out because we talked right after I exited the theater.
You only call me for two things, either when you're pooping or when you walk out of a movie. And I know two things have happened.
Yeah, one of the two.
You're calling me,
one of the two. It's for certain. And so when I was coming out of the movie theater, I loved what they did with Florence Pugh's character, and I don't remember what her name was. Do you remember what her name was?
It starts with a Y. Yeah. I can't. Well,
anyway,
I'm not going to pronounce it. I'm going to suck. I know the name. I just can't pronounce it.
It's a Russian pronounced name, but Yelena.
Is that
it?
Yelena.
And so what they did with her, I thought was really, really good. This really isn't a spoiler because Black Widow's dead in the MCU, but this is something where they're going to be able to continue with the mantle of Black Widow, and I like where they're going with it. They had kind of a twist at the end that I appreciated. I really like the Red Guardian character too. I thought, is it Red Guardian? Yeah, Red Guardian, because it's not Crimson Dynamo, because that was in Iron Man 2 kind of. But anyway. I really liked his character. I thought it played more of a comedic role, and I appreciated that. I would have to say that this would be in the top 10 of my Marvel movies. I think in another episode we could probably do a ranking on that to determine, where the movies are themselves. But it's definitely worth the watch, man. I mean, I laughed, I enjoyed it. And for a 2.5 hour movie, just over 2.5 hours, it really didn't feel like it was that long.
It didn't feel.
I didn't feel like there was really any slow points.
No, it didn't feel that long. I mean, I guess that's my biggest complaint is. Yeah, I liked the character development and the story, but I mean, they sold such a basic story that's why it didn't feel as long. It was just like go, barely stop, go. Plus, I've always said this before, I love watching movies with my wife, but it was hilarious because she's like, that woman would be dead, that person's arm would be broken, no way. And I'm just like going, we're watching a superhero film, babe.
Yeah.
Like, I don't care. It's fantastical. If they fall off a plane, they should have died 19 times. And I think that goes back to my argument why they haven't made this film. How do you explain a almost normalized woman, right?
Right.
Who is trained like a spy, do the same things as Thor in them. You know what I mean? Like in that scene where they're flying, and it's in the trailer, where they're falling out of the plane and all that, and they're flying down, they're still fighting in the air. Yeah, no. That's never going to happen.
That doesn't happen that way. It's a little Fast and Furious in some of the action scenes, where like it's just too grandiose and it's unbelievable at times. And they had family.
They had family.
Yeah, family. I don't mean to cut you off here, but the one thing that I didn't like about the film, and again, I don't want to spoil it because I know that there's a few people who are probably going to listen to this podcast that want to watch the Black Widow movie. I didn't like what they did with Taskmaster. And it wasn't because I didn't like the backstory on Taskmaster or how Taskmaster became Taskmaster. I have an issue with Marvel villains that I don't think that they give the villain enough depth, and they're just throwaway characters at the end of the day. And while they opened it up for Taskmaster to be a character ongoing in the MCU, I still felt like at the end of the day it was a throwaway character.
Yeah, I mean, me and you have argued this before in the back notes, but I mean, I think I don't care if you kill off villains and stuff, and I'm not, I'm trying not to spoil this either, because I will say this. When the trailer came out, I called you, and I called this. And I did. I said,
you did.
The one thing about it is this is what it's going to be, and I think everybody will be surprised by it, and I was spot on. The problem is, though, is a lot of villains, unless you're in like the Rogues Gallery of Batman or Spider-Man's gallery, are actually pretty, and people are going to hate me for this, but they're pretty boring characters.
Right.
Like
I agree.
I'm not saying they don't have good backstories, but this is why most villains, if you look at in general, don't have their own comics. The ones that do are sort of, they turn into anti-villains and stuff. Like Venom has his own comic, right? Certain ones can. But I mean, Taskmaster, it also because you have heroes that defeat people and they get bigger and they have to do something, right? So what do? They go create another character that can fight against them. And eventually they have to keep building them up to be bigger and stronger. And I mean, Taskmaster essentially in the comics has a photogenic mind that can remember everything and copy everybody's moves. I mean, that's why you see it in the trailer. Black Panther claws. That's why there's a shield. That's why he can shoot arrows. You know what I mean? They can do everything that the Civil War or, all the characters from the Avengers can do, essentially, besides Thor, right? And so, you do that, but also how do you make it realistic? So I do applaud Marvel.
That's where it's hard.
That's where it's hard. I mean, the hardest ones in my opinion, was Ghost when they did that.
Yeah.
I thought they did a great job and explained it.
Out of Ant-Man.
Yeah,
was that Ant-Man 1 or Ant-Man and the Wasp? I don't remember.
Ant-Man and the Wasp. And when it was coming out, I didn't know how they were going to do that character. I was very concerned because I was thinking, what's going to happen here. But I see your point that a lot of these heroes are thrown away. Is like, they kill them off too quick, or they don't care about the character development of them, or they just move on to the next. But I also think that the one right side is, though, too, we also don't want to see the whole movie about that villain unless it's a bigger build-up villain like we're going to get, with Kang or what we had with Thanos or the Red Skull even, right? Because then it turns into a villain film. And but I mean, overall, my favorite parts were the Red Guardian and Yelena. Especially her scene with talking about the uterus and all that and grossing David Harbour out. I think the chemistry with the staff was really great and there was really funny scenes.
No, well, so it's not a spoiler. So in the trailer, they set it up where Natasha has a family, and I will say that the quote unquote family actually had a family dynamic throughout the whole thing, and I appreciated that. I thought that was pretty good.
Yeah, I thought they did a good job. I think David Harbour is great in everything he does. I think he
Yeah.
plays a great character. But I mean, yeah, I would give the film if I was going to rank it, and I don't always do it, but I'd probably give it a B plus. I enjoyed it. I went and got what I wanted, and it wasn't too long. I wasn't overdrawn, and I didn't leave like pissed off about anything, which is rare.
I
for
would
me.
say, yeah, I would say that I would probably give this a solid B. I don't know that I would go higher than a B plus, but a solid B would be good.
Okay.
But so earlier this week though, I sent you over a photo. I sent you a little meme, and I found this on social media, and it says everything has to go except for one. Which one is staying? And so that's the title of it. And basically, it's a sci-fi world or sci-fi storyline that you have to choose one out of the bunch,
And you get rid of all the rest.
and you're going to get rid of all the rest. So of the categories in the sci-fi worlds, you have Star Wars, you have the Marvel Cinematic Universe, you have DC, which I would imagine is the DC movies because this is all movies.
Right.
You have Jurassic Park, Harry Potter, The Lord of the Rings, Fast and Furious, Back to the Future, 007, Star Trek, Indiana Jones, and Avatar. Now, I want to put a couple caveats on here.
Okay.
We'll go ahead and share this on our social media. We'll share it the same time that we're going to drop this episode, so that way people can reference it if they kind of get lost, because there are quite a bit of worlds on here. But you and I had a little bit of a dialogue about this, and we chose two things that I didn't think that either one of us thought we would have chose. And so what I'm going to say, Jake, is I'm going to ask you again for the podcast, which one of these are you going to choose and why? And then I'll choose mine and why, and then we can discuss it. Okay. So which one of these universes are you going to choose that you have to abandon every other one?
Star Wars.
And why is that?
It changed my. I have a hard time saying when it changed my life, but it did. I remember I watched Empire Strikes Back when I was 4, and I never stopped watching it. And even though I have a soft spot for the other films, I don't think they're great. I mean, I actually enjoy 1 through 3. When they came out in the early 2000s, compared to the newest ones. I hate the newest ones.
See, I'm opposite of you with those. I prefer the newest ones over 1 through 3, but I don't know that it's disputable that 4 through 6 are the best.
4 through 6 are the best. The Force Awakens wasn't bad. The next 2 abominations were terrible. Solo, a great film.
I tried to watch Solo. I couldn't get into Solo.
I liked Solo. I actually really enjoyed it. I didn't think I was gonna, and it actually happened when I first got I think it was HBO Go, and I just threw it on and watched it, and I was like, I was pleasantly surprised. Now, my one question with this is, do I get the books and the TV shows too, or?
I'm gonna say no, and the reason why I'm going to say no on this is just because on the photo itself, like for Marvel, it says Marvel Cinematic Universe, and so every other category on here is film, and so I'm just gonna say that all of these are films. So you're not gonna be able to get the books or the comics or anything like that.
So that was the other reason. Like I was like, I could actually live without I love the MCU, but I could live without it because I had comics and stuff, right? I can live without Harry Potter. I actually like all the Harry Potter movies, the books. Jurassic Park, I did the first one. That's another movie that I watched a lot as a kid. I think that movie changed cinema. There's always a.
Did you like the newer sequels for Jurassic Park?
I only watched one of
Chris
them.
Pratt?
I haven't watched the other ones. I've only watched the first one.
I like the first
Jurassic World.
I don't know, what is it, the 4th movie in the series? I don't remember what it is, but I like that one. I thought that one was pretty good.
Yeah, I mean, but see, and I think there's a movie that comes out once every 10 years that changes cinema. And so on that list, Avatar is that. Avatar is the only movie that I went 3 times in a row to see in the theater. And I went 3 different ways. I went 3D, 2D, and then IMAX. And I went.
Avatar was a great film.
It's a great film. It's just there's only one movie. It's not the greatest film I've ever seen. I mean, yeah, I went 3 days in a row to the theater. I went to watch other things. Like, did you know all the ships in the film are named after like aliens characters?
No, I
So,
didn't know
like,
that.
you know me, I'm a guy that actually looks for all the Easter eggs and stuff.
Right.
Indiana Jones is another one. I think it helped with a lot of cinema in the way it was, but I only like the first one. Well, I have a soft spot. I like Crystal Skull, but I could live without that. Star Trek. I've always been a Star Wars kid over Star Trek.
Me too.
Don't really
Did you
care.
ever watch the movie? Did you ever watch the movie Fanboys?
Oh yeah, love that film.
That was a fantastic movie. The battle between the Star Wars
Yep.
fans and the Trekkies. That was awesome.
Yeah.
That was awesome.
I've never seen a Bond film, so 007's already out.
You've
for
not
me.
seen one Bond film?
Never. Not one. Doesn't matter if it's Sean Connery. Doesn't matter if it's Pierce Brosnan. I'm not a spy movie guy, and
Okay.
I had people that have argued. I remember I worked when I was a chef at this steakhouse out here. The GM was like, he was the epitome of a guy who wanted to be either a Bond villain or hero. Like he was
Okay.
always the most slick dressed person. Drove like a nice red Jaguar. You know what I mean? He was smooth talking to
Right.
the ladies. And he argued with me one time. He goes, "I think you do it on purpose now." And I think I hit a certain point in my life because I'm about 36 that I just purposely don't watch Bond films now because I just never have and I don't see the point.
I have to be honest with you. I have not seen every Bond film, and actually, I've seen more of the newer Bond films than I have of the older Bond films. The Bond films really aren't that bad. They're pretty good. GoldenEye was probably one of our favorite
Video
Nintendo
games.
64 games. That was a great movie. But okay, but continue from there. So we've got a couple more on here.
Lord of the Rings. I mean, that probably includes the Hobbitot or the Hobbit.
Yeah, the
The Hobbit. The books, though. I mean, intentionally, if I could have those are amazing. Fast and the Furious. I'm surprised it's on a sci-fi list, but then I'm not because of the way it's going.
Right.
And I haven't seen anything past 3 of Fast and Furious. And I know people tell me I should watch more, but I don't know. I like the first
I think
one.
you can stop at 5.
Yeah, and I'm just like,
I
okay,
think
whatever.
you can stop at 5.
DC has never gotten their shit together besides Joker.
Right.
Mind you, I'm not saying Justice League and all those are terrible, but they've never
Right.
done an amazing job to keep me there. And the only other one is Back to the Future is a tough one for me. I like them all, but I could live without them. I think they did change
Okay.
cinema. I think there's a lot of great things about it, but also I've said this before. I don't really like time travel. It's too messy for
Yeah.
me. It doesn't
Right.
make a lot of sense, and it's not that I'm stupid.
Sure.
It's just like, it's a
Well,
never-ending loop.
That's
then.
debatable.
Yeah. But no, so for me, it's Star Wars. It changed my life. I think it's there was a reason it was the highest grossing film of all time. It also has a little bit of everything I like. It's a little bit Western. It's sci-fi. It's got aliens. It's got romance. You know what I mean? It's got anything I would want out of a movie genre. What about
Okay.
you?
Well, so I texted this to you the other day, and I gave you a little bit of an explanation. And I don't think you even asked me for an explanation, but I felt like I had to justify it because it was something I think was way out of the ordinary, or way out of left field. Looking at this list, I actually went with Back to the Future.
That
And my
surprises
reasoning
me.
for Back to the Future, I think that might surprise quite a bit of people. But the reason why I went with Back to the Future is because I don't think that there is any fault within the movie series. I think that there's some things that you can kind of question. But again, going back to the days that this was actually released, the storyline transcends for decades now. I mean, now granted, you're going to the years of, what was it, 2019 or 2020 or something like
Right.
that. And so, that's obviously not the case, right? But as far as the storyline goes, you can put a different year on it and it still transcends, right? So like, even if this movie were to be released today and teenage Marty McFly was a teenager in 2021 and he goes back to 1993 or 1984, whatever the difference in the timeline is, it would still work. Like, you could still tell the story. And so I like that part of it. I think the character development within there is fantastic. I mean, all of the characters play a different version of themselves throughout, except for whatever the dad's name is.
Crispin Glover.
Yeah,
where they had him
Crispin
upside
Glover,
down because it's not really him.
Yeah, and it was a different actor, but he had his prosthetics on or something like that. So, I mean, but every character played a different character of themselves, and it was believable. It was something that was kind of campy, but it was something that was believable, and their version of time travel was digestible, meaning that
It was simple.
you
and
didn't
it
really
just,
have to think about it. You know, because like you said, with time travel, you can get way out in the weeds, and some things are just not good. But so that's why I chose that as the number one. I could watch any time Back to the Future's on, whether it be 1, 2, or 3. I sit down and I watch it. It's kind of like a Rocky movie. Anytime Rocky's on, I'll watch Rocky. But I it was a hot debate there for a second between Star Wars and the MCU.
Yeah,
and just candidly, real quick, let me just go through each one of these real quick, and I'll make it brief.
Yeah.
DC, I second everything you said about the DC universe. I'd really like to see some movement on that to get better. Jurassic Park, I think, was good initially, and then they got way out in left field, and then kind of brought it back a little bit. I've got to be honest with you. I've been a huge Harry Potter hater. And Angela, if you're going to listen to this, I'm sorry. I know that you're like the world's largest Harry Potter fan, but Harry Potter can kiss my ass. Lord of the Rings is really good, but it's better in the books than it is in the movies. Specifically, I like the Hobbit series. I like the Hobbit better than Lord of the Rings. But again, if we're gonna go with the novels, I think the novels are so much better than the movies. But you can't. I mean, these things don't all have novels, so we can't measure it that way. Fast and the Furious, you had me up through Fast 5. I think it was Fast 5 is where you had me, and then it just got so crazy, and I was just like, okay, this is too much. The Bond series, same thing. Like I told you, they have great movies, but I'm not always buying a ticket to go see it. Like if it's on TV, I'm not dropping what I'm doing to watch it. Star Trek, I've always been a Star Wars person over Star Trek. I only know a few characters of Star Trek. I like the rebooted movies that they did, or at least the first one. But it's just too much. Indiana Jones, they're fun, they're good, but I don't think that they're that impactful that I have to watch them every single time. And the only reason why Avatar really never had a shot here is because it's only one movie. Like, I can't choose that as the universe that I'd want to watch over and over and over because there's only one movie. I know there's a second movie coming out. But
and do you think it's too long, that it's taken too long to make the second movie?
Yeah.
I mean, I think we're spoiled because, like, if
it's
you
a
look
Mayweather-Pacquiao fight.
Yeah, but I mean...
That's what it is.
I mean, back in the day, like, the one thing I think we forget, I mean, but also, technology has improved and stuff, but sequels would take a while to make, right? And I think we're just used to it. It has to come out right away. And I think Lord of the Rings started that. Yeah, but Lord of the Rings started that where they filmed them all at once, and so it was easy for them to do. But yeah, but Avatar, it was so successful. Why didn't this get going for so long?
And I think that James Cameron's such a perfectionist with this story that it's almost like Dr. Dre with his music. Like, he doesn't want to release anything because he wants it to be perfect.
It's a detriment.
And yeah, and for me, like, I like the movie Avatar, but to be honest with you, when the second one comes out, I'll buy a ticket, I'll go watch it. But I mean, it's like Top Gun's coming out in November, right? It was supposed to come out last July. Now it's coming out in November. I'm super excited for that because it's an entirely new storyline on a great film. But that took a long time too.
I'm super excited to be disappointed by that film. I cannot wait to shit all over that fucking film. So, I was surprised. So my argument with you against this is the one win that you have against me with Back to the Future, I'll say, is there's not a bad film there. Mind you, they stopped at 3.
No, there's not.
And Robert Zemeckis said,
I mean, you
he'll
could say,
never...
and I'm going to interrupt you real quick because the one thing that was bad was the TV series.
Never saw it.
They had the cartoon.
Yeah, but we're only doing movies. We're only doing movies here.
Okay, well.
So, I'm just saying.
Suck my ass.
Robert Zemeckis said they'll never make another film, so when he dies, they'll make another one, and we'll all be pissed off.
Oh, I hope that they don't.
Well, they will, and they will, and it's gonna be like Home Alone 4. It's gonna be just a shit show.
It's gonna be Fear and Loathing in Hollywood.
Yeah, and so Star Wars made bad ones, but when you're saying the
special.
Yeah, have you ever watched that? It's so I like it,
dude. I like the Ewoks though. I'm not gonna lie.
Yeah, I mean, it's one of those things though. Like Back to the Future, like when you say the character development, it's not. I don't really think it's character development. I think it's just in prosthetics or not, and they're older or younger, I think Star Wars has way more character development over time. You get to see, but I think it's also a more serious film. I think, Back to the Future is meant to be a little more tongue in cheek. But I think the Star Wars, like that, I think the only thing I would agree with you is they stopped at 3 films. They did a great job. I don't really have a lot of complaints about those movies, like you said, but it wasn't as impactful on me. Like, I think the only thing I loved about it was when I'd watch it, it would say to be continued. And I was just like, wow, it was one of those films that just had the balls. And not saying other films didn't do this, but they had the balls knowing that they were just going to make another one no matter what.
Yeah. They were good at their cliffhangers.
Yeah.
The one thing that I will say, and I'm a huge Star Wars fan, so like the point is kind of moot after I argue with you, but the only thing that I would say is a key difference between Back to the Future and Star Wars is that Star Wars, as far as character development goes, is very much like Game of Thrones, where there's so many characters, it's hard to love them all, if that makes sense. Right. And if you're not a huge fan of Star Wars, if you've never gotten into it, I kind of feel like you might get a little lost with as many characters. Whereas with Back to the Future, there's really maybe 2 handfuls of characters. You've got Marty McFly, you've got Doc, you've got Biff Tannen, and you've got their lineage, right?
Yeah.
And then you've got Mom and Dad McFly, and you've got Jennifer, who, by the way, was absolutely hot in Back to the Future, and I'm talking both of them.
Yeah.
Just so you know. But so there's not as many characters that you need to memorize or you need to familiarize yourself with. You don't get lost in the story. So, again, I really think that this is kind of a moot argument, but I thought it was a fun discussion. I mean, I sent it to you just to kind of get a conversation going, and then this ended up being something we wanted to talk about. So, good there.
Yeah, I think on the final point on this in my end is, like, people that watch Star Wars, there's a certain type of people, right? And I don't think there's a certain type of people that watch Back to the Future. Like, right. So, I don't know if you ever watched the show How I Met Your Mother, but my wife was really into that. And she made me laugh when we first started dating because she never watched Star Wars. And then she's like, oh, there's a How You Met Your Mother episode about that where the girl watched it. She's like, yeah, it's okay. And then they couldn't date after that. And she goes, I wonder if that's going to be us, and it was a joke. Because my wife watched them and was like, oh, that's great. Wow. And she says, well, maybe it's, and her brother's like obsessed with it. And I found it funny because they're about the same age. And she's like, I just never had a reason to watch it. And she goes, and maybe I went so long without watching it, I just don't care. Right. She goes, maybe if I would have watched it when I was 6, I would have been like, oh, this is amazing. But she's just not into that. And so to me, it was just baffling because I'm like, what the hell? But I'm sure if you just asked her if she watched Back to the Future, yeah. And I'm not saying she's going to say she's the biggest fan of it. But like you're saying, I think it's more digestible for people. Where, you meet Star Wars people, they're Star Wars people. You never really meet and I'm not saying there's none out there, but you never really meet like Back to the Future people. Like
die-hard people,
like you meet Star Wars
that are showing
people.
up to Comic-Con and all that sort of stuff. Yeah,
right.
I would agree with you there. By the way, for the 2 of you that are going to listen to this podcast, if you haven't watched the movie Fanboys, you really need to. It's freaking hilarious, and it's so funny just because there is a constant battle between Trekkies and Star Wars fans, and this movie kind of goes through that a little bit in a comedic way. It's pretty funny.
Yeah,
but
it's a very typecast movie, though, because all the characters in it, if you watch them in other films, they're the same character in other films.
Yeah, very much.
It's one of those type of comedies.
Yeah, absolutely. So one thing that I wanted to talk with you about before we wrap this up. So the other night, so I subscribed to this thing. Have you heard of it? It's called Bespoke Post.
Oh yeah, I know Bespoke Post.
Yeah, so I started a subscription a couple months ago.
Are they sponsoring us?
No.
Oh, dang.
No.
Never mind. I thought you got me excited. Sorry, I didn't mean to.
Yeah, right. Wouldn't that be great? Yeah, but the one thing that they do is they send out a package to you once a month, and I've gotten a few things in a package, and I'm excited for this new package that's coming out because I'm actually going to get to try a couple different whiskeys that I've never tried before. So the last package, just to kind of put this in perspective, I got a couple cigars, and to be honest with you, gun to my head, I don't remember what they were, but they were pretty good to smoke. Well, at least one of them was good to smoke. The other one was mediocre at best, but it was nice to at least have the good cigar. So this time around, there's a couple different whiskeys that are coming my way. One of them's called a Buffalo Trace. Have you heard of this? It's
I love Buffalo Trace.
And so I'm excited to try that. I've never tried that one. And then the other one is a rye, and it's Rabbit Hole Boxer Grail. Have you heard of that one?
Yep.
Okay, so I've never tried these two, so I'm excited to try these. But what on the topic of whiskeys, I know that you're a whiskey aficionado. So, talk to me a little bit about give me like your top 5 whiskeys that you've had.
So the point I'll make first is, are you an American, Canadian, or Irish whiskey guy?
I like Irish whiskey a lot. I like Canadian whiskey, but I think I'm more of an American whiskey, to be honest with you.
Okay, and are you more bourbon or whiskey, or do you go down that road, or just like you like it?
I'm more of a whiskey than a bourbon.
Okay. Now, when you said rye, are you more of a rye whiskey guy or a corn mash?
I don't know. It kind of goes back and forth, to be honest with you. I probably have more rye than I do a corn mash, but I like both of them.
Okay. See, I'm an Irish whiskey fan out of all, and I know that sounds terrible because
Okay.
I love them all. I'm not gonna deny that, but I just like the smoothness of Irish whiskey, and most of my
Okay.
favorite. So my favorite whiskey of all time, if I can just get anything, is Redbreast. And it's
Okay, and where's that
aged,
from?
It's Ireland. It's an Irish whiskey.
Okay.
I could be wrong. I'm not. I don't want to say anything that's wrong here, but I know it's aged, and you actually get it for a decent price for an aged whiskey, and they do
Okay.
a very good job. Jameson's my go-to, just standard whiskey.
Right.
If
I
I'm
think
gonna,
that's everybody's Irish whiskey go-to.
yeah, and that's my standard. I don't go to like deep into like the castmates and all that. But I will say I actually also like Conor McGregor's Proper 12. I think it's the cheap version of Jameson. Bottles
Okay.
similar, all that. I think they're around the same price point. You usually get it for about $27 for the bottle, and it actually doesn't taste as bad. I know some people say it tastes absolute crap, and I don't know what they're talking about because it's like it's not like you're drinking Old Crow or anything terrible.
Right.
So those are my favorite. If I drink American, I'm more of a fan of just strict bourbon rather than rye whiskey. And I know
Okay.
Canadian's closer to rye typically, historically speaking. My brother's a huge Canadian whiskey fan, and I just don't know what happened there. But I would always pick Irish first, then I'll go for American. And American's all over the place. Like I like Eagle Rare, but it usually depends on the vintage. I like Four Roses. I love Buffalo
Four
Trace.
Roses is good.
Buffalo Trace is good, both the rye and the regular. Bullet, another one. But one of my favorites to try every year, and it's not because they do a great job. It's a very expensive one. I don't know if you ever had a Whistle Pig.
No.
So
I've not.
Whistle Pig is known because they have like a collector bottle too. And we know I'm a big fan of pigs, not just to eat, but
Oh, yeah.
the animal. I have a tattoo, and they have a flying pig on the top of the bottle. So
Okay.
it's like a collector's bottle, and they'll usually go about $300 a bottle. So it's not something
Oh, wow.
that's cheap for their good vintages. But there's a bar up here called Southland Whiskey Kitchen where I live in
Okay.
Portland. And they actually do happy hour whiskey night. I think it's on Tuesdays. And what they do is they have a huge whiskey book. I mean, they might serve other spirits, but essentially they're a whiskey house, right? And that's all across
Right.
the board. And you open, they bring you like this menu book, like the size of like a Cheesecake Factory book,
Yeah.
and they'll have certain pages that night. They'll go page 77 and 78, everything's half off or something like that for their happy hour. And so it's been
Okay.
really cool because I'll go and you'll see something that's usually $40 a shot and you can get it for 20 that night. So it's like, why not? Well, I got to know the staff there, and me in my industry, they sort of, you get to know enough people and chefs like each other, stuff like that, where every year when the new Whistle Pig comes out, they let me try it for free, which is very generous.
Oh, okay.
Because it's like, that can go like $100 a shot sometimes. And honestly, though, since 2013, I have not had a good one, in my opinion, from them. I don't. And mind you, I haven't had the
really?
last 2 years due to COVID. I think the last one I had was 2019. And it's not that they were terrible. They just weren't, you know what I mean? They weren't anything stellar. And I don't know if that's because, it's not like the first year I did it was 2013. And it was like, and it was great. I tried the 2012 and I tried the 2010 and those were good. But they just weren't up to snuff with those. But I would suggest if you get a chance to try something from them, B-Word. They do a very good job. But I like a lot of whiskeys. I'm more whiskey than Scotch. And I don't like I like my alcohol straight. I like it straight and hard.
I do too.
I
do
don't
too.
like to muddle it up. I like to be able to taste it. But how do you drink your whiskey? Are you an on the rocks
I'm
neat or a...
No, I'm a neat
Okay.
and sip. neat and sip. And so I actually had a single malt, an American single malt up your way.
Okay.
So I went over to Total Wine and I grabbed this bottle. This is probably about a year or so ago now, but it's a Westward American single malt. Have you had that out of Portland?
No.
So it's actually really good. It's got kind of a butterscotch taste to it, but it's also got a citrusy feel and it's oaky. And it was a good sipping wine. I actually paired it, or I'm sorry, sipping whiskey. I actually paired it with a nice cigar. Because I'm the kind of guy that when I drink whiskey, I like to have a good cigar with it, and I like to dip the cigar in the whiskey like Bill Clinton dipped it in Monica. You know what I'm talking about? And
yeah.
so then I got the flavor of the whiskey with the flavor of the smoke, and I really really enjoy that. I don't smoke cigars all that often, but when I do, I like to smoke it with a good whiskey. But that one's really good. If you get a chance to try that one, especially when you're talking about doing recipes and stuff, if you want to pick up a bottle of that and try to manufacture something out of that, it's a good whiskey. It's really good. But probably the best one that I've had recently, and this is gonna sound really stupid, okay. I do like flavored whiskeys. Like I'm not so proper with whiskey that I'm not, that I stay away from flavored whiskeys. But the Jack Daniel's Tennessee Honey
That's a good one.
is actually really good. It's a bottle that you're gonna find damn near everywhere. It's got a good price point. You're not gonna price yourself out. And it tastes really good. You taste the honey. I thinking about it, I think it had a little bit of a vanilla flavor to it, but it's really good. I
That's
really
the
like that
sweetener.
one.
Yeah, I mean the problem
Yeah.
I have is I don't mind the Tennessee honey. The problem I have with whiskey being flavored though, it's not like vodka. It doesn't take it on as good. Like
Yeah,
vodka's the easiest alcohol to add anything to, just the way it's made,
Sure.
what it's out of. Because I've had like that. What's that new one? Screwball. Have you
I have
had
not
that?
tried
It's
that.
it's peanut butter whiskey.
Oh, and you know what? I may have tried that. My friend Eric had a peanut butter whiskey bottle. I don't know if it was Screwball, but it was something different. It was killer.
It's the new age Fireball, I call it. I've always hated
See,
Fireball. I hate cinnamon. It reminds me of remember those atomic fireballs when we were kids?
Yeah,
I hated
or the
those.
cinnamon bears.
Yeah.
Cinnamon bears. Yeah, I know. Fireball to me is the whiskey version of Jägermeister, right? So Jägermeister, you get the black licorice flavor, and it's easy enough to shoot. But the same thing with Fireball, it's easy enough to shoot. I think we spoke last week or the week before about my Crown Apple experience.
Right.
Like Crown Apple, same thing, easy to shoot. It's not really what I would do as a sipping drink, and that's the same thing with the Tennessee Honey. It's not really a sipping drink. It's a good mixing drink, but yeah, I would agree with you there. It is hard to find a good flavor profile that actually sticks with whiskey, that actually makes it taste good and also enhances it, other than just the flavoring and the sweetener. But I'm with you there. But I do think that I am not such a whiskey aficionado that I'm unwilling to try, the common whiskeys, if that makes sense.
Yeah, I'll try almost anything. I mean, like I said, but see, I used to drink my whiskey neat, and now I drink it on the rocks.
Do you?
I like water. I think it opens it up a little bit.
Okay.
It also makes it smoother. I like drinks, as we said too before. I like drinks really cold. So
Yeah.
There's nothing worse than when it warms up in your hand. I mean, I understand because to me it's already a warm drink. It's already going to warm
Right.
up on the inside, so I don't need it to be warm on the outside. But also, to be honest, it muddles the flavor too. I think it's like water. If you drink, if you pour yourself, and this is a true test, and I think this is to help people with a taste test. If you take a glass of water and you pour it out of your fridge or wherever, and then you let it get to room temperature and taste it, compared to when it was cold, it tastes a lot different. You taste a lot
warm
of
water.
You taste a lot of more impurities, stuff like that, right? So you can taste more in the water. So the same thing happens with whiskey. Sorry, my throat got a little dry there. So my thing is that when you drink it super cold, it takes off some of the harshness. So I think it's easier to drink. So I've always enjoyed it over the rocks. It's just something I like better over the years. But
So if it's at my house, if I'm buying a bottle, it's in my freezer. Like that's where I keep it.
Okay.
And so when I pour it out to have that neat shot of whiskey, It's already cold.
See, I
It's
have
already
a
cold. So I don't. So okay, but let me just tell you something real quick. So recently, I went to dinner with my buddy Mikey,
okay.
and we ended up going to a local restaurant here in town that had a whiskey on hand. I don't know, on tap's not the right word, but they had bottles on hand of a locally distilled whiskey out of Fallon, Nevada. So
Okay.
for those of you that might not know where Fallon, Nevada is, that's where the naval base is, and that's where Top Gun was filmed, and et cetera, so forth. But it's called Frey Ranch. So they have their own distillery out there. It's a straight bourbon whiskey. And let me tell you, the flavor profile is phenomenal. It's really, really good. But that is not a shooting whiskey. Let me tell you, that is a sip and grin. I mean, it's a sip and bear it kind of thing, because it is. It's a little rough, but man, it's good. And I say this, I know I'm kind of describing it in a bad way. It's a really, really good sipping whiskey or sipping bourbon if you're interested in those things. But that's the thing about whiskeys and bourbons and scotches, is that they all have a different flavor profile, and they all have a different kind of aftertaste or burn that happens with it. So it really just depends on what you're doing with it.
Yeah, it's like, do you like White Lightning or Moonshine or whatever you want to call it?
I've had moonshine. So they used to sell moonshine that obviously didn't have the same amount of alcohol content and all that sort of stuff. No, I'm not a huge fan of moonshine. I think that it's like drinking fire.
Yeah.
I do think that there are some good flavors that go with moonshine. Like I had a blueberry moonshine. That was actually pretty good. But to be honest with you, man, my esophagus doesn't like that shit.
See, I love moonshine.
It burns all the way down.
I love moonshine, and see, that's the difference between aged whiskey and moonshine, is it takes on flavors better, in my opinion. So I've had like peach moonshine, and I will tell you this though, I don't know if you know this, it's cheaper to make, or it's cheaper to make in general, but it's so expensive to make comparatively flavored moonshine than straight moonshine.
Really?
But I used to make moonshine in my house.
Oh, okay.
So when I went to culinary school, little side story is we got to vote on classes. And I remember one year we voted on distillery and beer making. So I learned how to brew beer and stuff. Well, I learned how to convert. Remember when we were kids and we played sports and there was the Gatorade, like orange cooler or whatever?
Yeah.
So I took a pressure cooker, some brass copper pipe tubing, a cooler like that, and I converted it into a still in my kitchen.
Oh, really?
And so I would use the pressure cooker, it would go up the pipe, and then what I did is I coiled it inside that Gatorade thing, had the button always on press, and then had another hole I drilled through so it would drip through, but it would run cold water through that too to cool the copper down while the liquid would come out. And I distilled it. Now, mind you, this is totally dangerous, and one misstep, the whole thing could have blown up, the pressure cooker. But yeah, I used to make my own, and it turned out good. I mean, I learned a lot from it. Yeah, you can go blind, but I mean, to be honest, that's only if you're drinking the first spoonful that comes out. You do have to go through a process, and it's interesting to see, because I mean, it tastes terrible at first, and then I think that's the other reason I got used to it. I got used to really high potent alcohol.
Right.
And so I really enjoy the high potency of, like, moonshine, stuff like that. But it's yeah, it's there's a lot of good whiskeys out there. I think we should maybe put up a list of ones we've had, or see what people think. I mean, I'd be interested to see what some of the fans like.
Yeah, absolutely.
But no, keep me posted on what you get from the bespoke post and all that, and I'll keep you posted what the new ones I'm gonna try. But years matter too, just like wine. That's the one last thing that people got to remember is not everything is created equal, no matter how how pure it is. So, anyways, that's what I got.
Absolutely. There. Well, good, man. Well, this has been a good conversation. Obviously, we've talked a little bit about some nerd stuff, and then a little bit more nerd stuff with some whiskey talk.
Yeah.
Well, on that note, man, let's go ahead and finish this up. And what I'll say to our fans out there is thank you for following us on whatever platform you're listening to this to, or to this on, I should say. Make sure to follow us on our socials at Bleach Bros Pod or at Bleach Bros Podcast, depending on what the social is on. We also have a Patreon. And so what we're going to start doing with Patreon is we're going to have actual Patreon content that won't be shared on any other site. And so we have some rewards on our Patreon. If you click on our socials and you go to our link tree, it's going to give you all the information on how to access that. And what we can do is if you have any questions for us, our email is going to be on there. All of our socials are going to be on there. Send us a message. But more or less, we want to make sure that we're getting out some good content and just kind of helping out our podcast so that way we can move forward and continue to get new technology and new content and new streaming platforms and all that sort of stuff. So we'd really appreciate your support if you're so willing to do so. And with that, Jake, what do you got for us?
Well, thanks to all the Patreon people first, but also thanks for all the dirty talk and come back and get sanitized.